Just make sure that my screen is sharing properly and we'll get started. So today I wanted to just hop in and share a resource that I've been putting together for the members in some of my paid programs. Now, I did a special Q&A call this week on how to handle teletherapy if you have all of a sudden had to figure out how to do therapy virtually and you're kind of scrambling trying to figure out what's the best way to do it? Are my students going to actually pay attention? What platform do I use? How do I maintain privacy? Things like that. Just trying to figure out how to get it all together. Then you're going to want to check out this video and keep watching. So I did a special Q&A for my members this week where we hopped on. I answered a bunch of their questions that had been coming up. But in preparation for that, I started creating a resource list that I wanted to share publicly because I've come up with a bunch of different links from the different platforms and just started compiling them so it can make things a little bit easier for you as an SLP who's got to try to figure this out really quickly and figure out how to minimize the disruption in the services for your students. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just share the screen so that you can see what resources are on here so that you can have some context if you are interested in taking a look at this resource list to figure out what's on there and how you can actually use it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share that with you really quickly. All right, so here we are. You can see it's just a simple Google Doc, and I have on this form or on this handout, I have information about 2 different platform options for teletherapy. Now, the reason that I've chosen the platforms that I have is because number 1, both of these platforms have a HIPAA compliant option. And number 2, they're really common, not just in the speech pathology world, but just in general. So there are some other options that are HIPAA compliant that are good platforms for online therapy. However, they're not necessarily widely used. So I wanted to focus on what would be the most accessible for you and would be a little bit more common, but also that would have an option for you if you wanted to maintain HIPAA compliance. So those 2 platforms are Google Meet and Zoom. So just to explain a little bit what's here and how this works. So for the platform options, not necessarily if you're on either Google Meet or Zoom, you can't assume that you are being HIPAA compliant. You need to sign what's known as a BAA agreement. So that is an agreement that between you and the platform company that outlines how you're going to use the platform, because it's not just a matter of whether the platform is or isn't HIPAA compliant, it's also about how you use it. So you do need to have one of those signed and be on one of the HIPAA compliant plans for Google Meet and Zoom. But that is the first thing that you want to do if you want to ensure that you are being compliant. So it's pretty easy to do with both of them. I've got some information for both of the plans. I know with Zoom, you do need to be on their healthcare plan, but I do have some information right here about how to accept the business associate amendment on there for Google Meet. So I've got all of those resources here. And there are a number of different things that you're going to need to figure out if you are going to use either of these platforms. So I have gone through their websites. Obviously, you can Google and go on their websites yourself, and they do have some great tutorials on both sites. So if there's anything on here that I have missed, obviously you could probably find it on those sites, but I have gone in and found the main things that you're going to want to know when you sign up for those plans, such as how to actually use the platform and how to get that BAA. So what I've got on the top here is just some information about the different Google Meet plans. They are relatively inexpensive. There is a G Suite option that is $6 a month, and then there's a business option that is $12 a month. Their tech support can help you to figure out which one you need. So it is relatively affordable to be on a plan that is HIPAA compliant if you are going to use Google Meet. So note, this is not the same as Google Duo, Google Hangouts. Those are not HIPAA compliant. Just be aware of that. So all of this at the top here is information about Google Meet. And then below that, I've got some information about Zoom, which is another platform option. Now, with Zoom, there are some basic and free plans available right now, and they are not HIPAA compliant. However, HIPAA has relaxed their guidelines temporarily because of the coronavirus. So you won't get in trouble if you are using the free or the basic plans on Zoom right now, because temporarily HIPAA has relaxed their guidelines just to allow more people to be able to use a less expensive plan on Zoom. However, if you are going to be using it for the long haul and doing teletherapy for the long haul, you do want to be aware of what those standards are. So here's some information about Zoom. So here's all of this stuff is about Google Meet up here, and then we've got information about Zoom here. So again, with Zoom, there are some less expensive versions that you can use temporarily while HIPAA has relaxed their guidelines, but the HIPAA compliant version, where you will also get that BAA, is their healthcare plan, which is $200 a month. So obviously a lot more robust. It's a great platform, but it is more of a substantial investment. So you've got to figure out, is it something that you're going to be doing for a long period of time? Do you have an employer that could pay for that plan? Are you somebody who has a whole team of therapists? And would it be worthwhile to make that investment? So that is something that you'll have to decide for yourself. And again, Zoom, I don't have as many links for Zoom, but they do have a lot of great information on their website. And then what I've also got here below that is just some general telepractice guidelines from ASHA, and then also some screen recording options. So while all of this up here is information on platforms that you can actually use for therapy sessions, these are screen recording options. So for example, if you're using either Zoom or there's another software that's called Loom, those are things that will allow you to record your screen. So that is something that you can use not for a therapy session, but if you want to be making some information for parents. So for example, let's say that you're going to record a video just of yourself and share it with your parents. Well, those are some different options that you can use to record on your screen, maybe demonstrate how to do an activity, because it's just you, and you might be okay with sharing a video of yourself to parents or people that you're, that need to be able to do those therapy activities with particular students. If you're not recording any student information or any sensitive information, and you're just sharing information like you would if you printed out a handout for your parents, you can use these two options right here just to, for example, make an informational video like I am doing right now. I happen to be using Zoom. So those are some things that you can do to actually record videos if you're using Loom. It's just something that, an app that you can download and use Chrome to just share your screen and walk through a tutorial. And then for Zoom, you can just do a meeting by yourself and hit record and record a video, and you'll have an MP4 file that you could, in theory, share the file through a Google Drive with your parents, or you could upload it to YouTube and share the YouTube video with your parents if you wanted to create some type of explanation for them that you wanted to share repeatedly. Again, if this has to be just information, no client information, no private information. This is just if you are going to share some kind of a tutorial with your parents, kind of like what I do on my blog. It's just me recording a video, explaining something to you, so I can use one of those non-HIPAA compliant options because I'm just recording a video of myself sharing some information. So be aware of those options. Again, if you are doing something for therapy, with your clients, you're going to want to, and if it is a therapy session, you're going to want to use one of the HIPAA compliant options, but just sharing information, these are a great option if you want to explain to parents how a therapy session works. Just make sure that you're not recording anybody else but yourself. If you do those. And then here I've got a couple of the private practice discussion groups. Those are some great groups you can use that you can go into to get some good information about teletherapy. People who are in private practice are great resources for all of this compliance stuff because they've been doing it on their own because they are running their own business. So they've had to figure out some of this compliance stuff that maybe you might not have had to think about if you are employed by somebody else. And then there's some information about HIPAA rules, specifically relating to emergency situations. And then one of my members asked, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. One of my members asked if they could waive, if you could ask a patient to waive their HIPAA rights and use the non-compliant version, not just during an emergency situation right now, but for the long term. I honestly am not 100% sure of the answer yet, but I would err on the side of using a compliant platform and not doing that, but I did find some information about that. Basically, the answer was that yes, patients can waive their HIPAA rights, but if you are going to be using that platform for the long haul, you do want to make sure that you're being compliant, just to, even if your patient signs off and says, oh, it's fine if the platform's not compliant. Well, there's that patient data that's out there on the server. I would err on the side of not doing that and using the compliant option, because there are, like I said, you do have some really good therapy platforms out there that are compliant. So I would aim for the gold standard. So again, if you've got some questions about how long, like what, just some information about how this has changed a little bit in the emergency situation, then use this link right here. This explains a little bit about how HIPAA is relaxing their guidelines temporarily, and you can use the basic versions of Zoom, but how you would want to, for the long term, just be aware of what you would need to do in order to stay compliant. So that's what's on this resource. Because it is a Google Doc, it is something that I am going to be changing periodically and adding to, and just adding some information here and making it as good as possible so that we can make this transition to teletherapy and providing these online services as seamless as possible. So if you would like to get access to this document, just send me a direct message to my Dr. Karen Speech and Language Facebook page and just say telepractice resource list. I would be happy to share this with you. And and when you join that, when you sign up for that list, you'll also be adding to my mailing list, and you will get information about when enrollment is open for my other programs. And if you are in any of my other paid programs like Language Therapy Advanced, Vocabulary Foundation, SLP Learning Academy, Social Language Roadmap, or the Art and Science of Narrative Language, if you're in any of those programs, you will have access to the long Q&A that I did this past week. So again, to get access to this resource list, just send me a direct message, say teletherapy resource list. I'd be happy to share that with you.